Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors. I hope you're having an awesome day. So today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Paul Adamson. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Excellent stuff. So I'm in the north of England in the beautiful county of Derbyshire near the Peak District, and I'm here to spend a couple of days with the talented Paul, who's an extremely talented craftsperson and also a very experienced outdoorsman. Now we're here to learn a few skills, and one of the things that Paul has shared with me over this weekend is how to carve a kuksa. As you do, right? Because every man's got to carve his own kuksa. And so what Paul has kindly agreed to do is actually take some time out to document the process for you here on Zed Outdoors. Now, if you maybe perhaps seen a couple of videos that I've already done with Paul before, one is about making a birch bark knife sheath, which has been a very well received video, and also a second one we basically had some breakfast, but that's quite important, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's it, oat cakes, right? So we've had some great breakfast. And what we're going to do in this video is actually teach you how to make a kuksa. Now there's two or three things I want to stress. Number one, this is going to be a long video. I know what you're thinking, Zed, all your videos are long, but this is going to be quite a long video because there's a lot of steps involved in making a kuksa. The second thing is I don't want any of you to be intimidated thinking you're going to need tons and tons of specialist equipment and it's just far and beyond what you're capable of. I spoke to Paul prior to starting and recording this, and what we're going to do is make it as accessible for pretty much everyone out there. Yes, there are going to maybe be two or three tools that you're going to need that are a little bit specialized, but I don't want that to put you off. It is a specialized item, a kuksa, intrinsically, but the point here is that I want it to be accessible for you, that by the time you watch this video you can go out there and attempt it yourself. We've both seen a lot of kuksa videos online.
Anyone can make one.
And it's one of those things where we want to make it, something that you can do and think, yeah, I want to try this myself. The other thing I want to stress to you is there are a lot of steps involved. So in this video, what I've done, if you look below in the description, just below this video, I've time-stamped the different aspects of this kuksa making process. So for example, wood selection, tools that you need, and so forth. In that way, you can use this video as a reference material moving forward. For example, once you watch this the first time throughout all the way, next time round, if you want to go straight into hollowing the bowl of the kuksa, you can look below, go to that timestamp and go straight to that section of this video. So without further ado, what we're going to do first is actually look at a few examples of Paul's work, some of the kuksas that he made, and we get straight into the video on how you can carve a kuksa. So Paul, talk me through some of the examples you've got here, and all of these you've carved yourself, haven't you?
All but one, and this was one of the ones that inspired me to make kuksas. I bought this in northern Norway in the Arctic from a place that sold chainsaws. As you do. And I just love the idea that the man behind the till made it. But we didn't speak the same language, so he didn't say anything. But yeah, I just loved it. It was great. You could tell he'd made it, and what a cool thing, eh?
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, I need to make something like this. But yeah, the rest I've carved, and it's just a small collection of what I've carved in the past, ones I just liked the look of and wanted to keep for reference for myself, and then I've reproduced each design several times and, well, sold them basically. And
these ones I've shown on video before is the one you custom carved for me, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, we've been drinking a few brews out of these,
we have. We've been Brew City with these two. Yeah, and this is your one, isn't it? That's kind of like very similar to...
One of two that I make. I've made one similar to yours now, and I've been using that at home quite a lot, and I really like it. It's a lot blacker than those because of all the coffee I've had in it.
And they vary quite a bit in terms of, so there's the two kind of biggest things you're looking at with kuksas. You're looking at the amount it holds.
Yeah.
And then you're also looking at the handle design, aren't you, in essence?
Yeah.
Are they kind of two distinguishing features then for...
I think they are. Functionality, like with spoons, it's a big deal because you're going to hold it in your hand, it's going to go to your mouth, and it's got to hold a liquid, and often a hot liquid, and that's a big thing with kuksas, is trying to make them hold hot liquids.
Right.
There are several problems with kuksas and making them so that they don't split, and that's the biggest thing in my mind when I'm making them.
So with the kuksas in, so just to kind of start off then, so you've got to think about the how much you want it to hold. Would you be thinking about whether it will be hot and cold?
Yeah.
And also you're kind of looking at the kind of the feel in the hand.
Yeah, how it feels when you hold it. Is it comfortable just to grab hold of?
Yeah.
Do you want to put your hand underneath?
Right.
Or if you've got ones with holes, do you want that?
Right. And, gotcha.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes then, what kind of design and model are we roughly going to be working
We're
with?
going to make the simplest one possible. So it hasn't got a hole in the handle.
Right.
That saves loads of time. It's got a fairly straight handle, you know, if anything it goes down a little bit. And just a simple shape, you know, we're not going for anything too elliptical. It starts off around. When they dry, they tend to go to this nice sort of elliptical shape.
Right.
Still functional, still work really well. Yeah, simple as anything really. And a slightly softer wood.
Excellent stuff. So now the tool selection, Paul.
Yep.
So in essence, obviously Kuksa being a very specialised item, I assume we're going to need a few specialised tools.
We need a few, but you don't need too many. You can make it as hard or as difficult on yourself as you like, really.
Right. So what we'll do in the purposes of this video, we're going to show you obviously the minimal specialised tools that ideally you would need, but also Paul will demonstrate kind of using the kind of basic tools, quote unquote.
Yeah.
How you can do it. But obviously using a specialised tool, am I right in assuming that it obviously just makes the task easier and a lot more quicker?
Faster, quicker, more enjoyable, I think. And you know, if you're making more than one and you want to make them as gifts for people, or just because you like making them, and hoarding them like I do, then you know, the more tools the better, really.
Excellent. So let's start off, I don't know, with the axe sitting here in front of me. Will I assume any kind of carving axe will do?
Yeah, as long as it's sharp and the bevels are nice. So if you look down there, it's not too thick. You haven't got shoulders on it.
Right.
So that's the main thing, and a fairly straight-ish bevel, so it's slightly curved but not too flat. Makes it really easy to sharpen up and a bit more robust, but you don't want it too curved like a church window. You don't want this. Right. It's more like this.
Gotcha.
And it will bite into the wood like you wouldn't believe.
Excellent. With the straight edge knives, will I assume a nice decent carving knife?
Yeah, I mean everyone knows the Mora knives. It's just I've stuck a fancy handle on this one, but you know, it's still the same working part. So yeah, just a straight knife with a flat Scandi grind bevel, and it's really good at carving. I love these knives, they're amazing, really
and
cheap
so
as well.
Part of your technique, you are going to be using this is a Mora draw knife, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a push knife.
Oh, push knife.
Yeah, people call them draw knives sometimes, but because it's got a double bevel, see, it's just like a conventional knife, yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So basically it's hard to use it as a draw knife because that surface is what you would try and engage on the wood, whereas a proper draw knife, all of that would engage, it'd be all flat. So what they're brilliant at is for pushing material off wood.
Right.
If you can get one of I only paid £12 for this, but if you could get one like this, you know, it'll up your game, speed up the work, your wrists won't hurt as much, and you make them faster.
Excellent stuff. Now, in terms of the, shall we talk about the gouges? Do you reckon,
yeah. Well, a lot of people use a spoon knife to carve out the middle of the kuksa. And if you want to hold a decent cup of tea, you know, you're looking at 300 plus mil.
Okay.
And the quick way to get it out is with a gouge, and you know, why limit yourself to certain tools? So I start off with a straight gouge. You don't need to. If you only bought one gouge, just buy one curved gouge like this. You can see the difference.
Yep.
So it's curved in this direction, and unlike a chisel, it's curved in that direction.
And what kind of measurement is that one, do you know?
It's about an inch wide, I think.
Right.
Yeah, if you go for between 20 and 25 mil,
okay,
you'll be able to make all sorts of things.
And what make is this one that you're particularly?
It's just an Ashley Isles one, brilliant UK manufacturer. Great tools, quite affordable.
Right.
You know, and it's the same with these sort of gouges. These are the field gouges.
Right.
Made in Switzerland, but they're you know, 25 to 35 pounds.
Right.
Depending on what size, and you can get really big ones, quite small ones.
So these are essentially the two main ones you're going to need?
Yeah, I only use these two really. These two sizes and these actual ones. You can get ones, the sweep is how you dictate this curve.
Right.
So a shallow sweep would be almost flat.
Okay.
And a really tight sweep would be something like this. So the sweep is, you can basically just visualise it, that's what I do.
Right.
If you get that kind of sweep, you're good to go. And in the feel ones, it's the number 7 range.
Okay.
Yeah, and 25 is the width, so it was an inch.
Right.
25.4, so yeah.
Excellent. And then with the larger spoon knife.
Yeah, so I only started getting into these the last couple of years. I used to use a gouge called a dogleg gouge, so it's got a really sort of accentuated shape.
Right.
So you can get into the bottom of the cups. It's only really the kuksas that you need dog leg gouges with.
Yep.
Just because of the depth. Bowls you can get away without them.
So essentially you're kind of talking the inside of here, aren't you?
Yeah,
like
trying to get in there is quite hard work. So trying to do it all with a spoon knife is quite hard work physically, but also you're limited on how deep you can make your kuksas.
Right.
So I've started using these. So I've just made these out of spring steel, and people call them TWCA cams, but it's just a big hook knife to me. I don't know whether to call it a TWCA cam or not.
Right.
But yeah, I think they were the Welsh manufacturers of these and users of these were the ones that popularised the make. Why not go with the name they call it, you know?
Right. So essentially you could use a spoon knife, but it is quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
And ideally you need kind of the larger one.
Yeah.
I would think. Where are these available then?
Well, there's not many people that make them. There's a few traditional blacksmiths like Nick Westerman that make them, and they're brilliant things. But I needed 6 the other day at short notice, and so I had to reproduce the one that I'd made for myself. So
right.
I just made them the same way I'd made them
Right.
before, and yeah, they're quite easy to make really if you're handy with a hammer and
So
a fire.
if people sent you a really nice email, would you make them one?
I don't know about that.
I said, get
It's just a time thing, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, if you want to take that step, that leap from carving items to making the tools to make your items, it feels really good. It's like getting your own food and then doing the butchery as well. It's the whole process. I think it's quite nice. So and axes, you know, I never spend more than about £5 on an axe.
Right.
And you can see the stuff I've made with it. It's endless. You know, you don't need a fancy axe.
So Paul, just to stress then as one last thing, so we've done an overview of the ideal tools that you will need.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes of this video, you can go to basics, can't you, and just use kind of the very basic.
Yeah, definitely, and I don't want to put people off with these tools. I mean, I've always been a big thing where I don't want lots and lots of chisels, you know, like I've seen in the past, people have rows and rows and rows of chisels, and you don't need that for this, and you don't even need what you've seen so far. This one here, I didn't use half of these things, so I didn't use the TWCA cam, I didn't use the straight gouge, I didn't use the push knife, I just used those 3 tools and an axe.
Right.
You know, and that's about £22. My old hook knife was 15, and then the straight knife was a tenner, and the axe was a £5.
Right.
And it's not hard to find these things. You know, it's all doable. And that did this, and look at the size of it. You know, you can eat your dinner out of there.
Yeah.
It's massive, and you can get a really nice finish, and you can get to the bottom of the bowl. And sometimes it's the design of the bowl or kuksa that will dictate how those tools will work, and being able to get to the bottom of them and still make them big.
So to basically summarise, you know, like with any task you carry out in crafts or bushcraft or anything, the more kind of specific tools you have, the easier the task, the more expedient. But at the same time, you just don't need it a lot of the time.
Yeah,
you know, especially when you're starting out or kind of first attempting something.
Yeah, I was quite reluctant to expand my range, and I've only got 3 more tools involved.
Right.
And it's massively transformed everything, you know. And if it makes my life easier, it's going to make a student's life easier.
So Paul, the next step we need to look at is wood selection. So what are some important things to bear in mind when selecting the wood?
Well, basically you want to make it easy on your tools and on your hands, and you want it to be a durable product. It's a bit like spoons really. You know, if you carve something out of very soft poplar, aspen,
Right.
it's not going to last very long, but it's going to be really easy to carve.
Right.
And same if you did it out of oak, it's going to be really tough, and you're going to get a few other problems as well. It all falls back to birch really. If you want to start out, birch is just fantastic stuff. It's one of the ones that are less likely to crack as well when you dry it or use hot liquids. Carve's really nice, it's really easy, and it's just that bit harder than some of the softer woods.
Gotcha.
But don't limit yourself to birch, and I certainly don't. Birch burr on the other hand, which are the burrs on the side of the tree, makes them look really pretty. I think you've got a nice one.
I have, yes.
And that's quite hard to carve. It's like carving through knots all the time, even
Okay.
if the knots aren't there because of the swirly grain. But it makes a much better cup in the end. It is really nice stuff. But I've made them out of all sorts. I mean, this is elm. This is one of the hard woods, and it's the heartwood of elm, so it's really tough stuff. I've removed all the sapwood, and that was just to see if I could make a very thin walled cup that held boiling water, and it does, and I'm dead chuffed with this. One of the earlier ones actually, made this quite a long time ago. And what else have we got on here? So I've been playing with willow a lot lately because I get a lot of it, and I thought, well, it's softer to carve than sort of ash and things like that. Almost softer than birch really, but the heartwood is a bit like this. It's really tough stuff, but the tools fly through it, and it's great for students, and we can just really get rid of that material as quickly as possible. This one is cherry, another old one, and I've got a tiny crack on it. Cherry's a nightmare for trying to crack. See, it's all dried out there.
Yeah.
So I just held this back, but it does work. I've used it quite a lot. Yeah, cherry, it can look nice, but it's one of the worst ones for cracking, and it's quite a bit harder than the birch.
So Paul, what material are we working with here then?
Well, I've got some of the willow I've been talking about.
Nice.
We're going to go and see what it goes like. You get a few problems. You can see these little knots and things.
Right.
We've got a nice big length, so we can always cut it to size. But the first thing is to split it in half.
Okay.
So I thought we'd start from a log, because everybody has to do that at some point. So see the centre of the tree? It's actually off centre, but it's what you call the pith. So you want to get away from there and try and split it about here. Can you see the growth rings?
Yep.
They're quite, you remember the sweep we were talking about on the gouge?
Yes.
The shallower the sweep, the better with the growth rings.
Right.
And they shallow out as you get away from the pith. That's one of the things to try and avoid splitting.
Okay.
Ideally, I'd normally start off with something bigger with even,
Right.
Shallower sweeped concentric rings. But this is what you're probably going to get most of the time if you're lucky from a tree surgeon or from your saw. You can do this with a bow saw.
Gotcha.
So that's what I wanted to show you, that you don't always have perfect materials.
Right. Gotcha.
So we'll just.
So he's got his Flintstones mallet here.
Yeah,
That's a proper one. That.
Check
that out.
Yeah, it's just an ash log. Same ones I used to make the horses out of in the past.
Nice.
Yeah, just rough and ready, a bit like me.
Okay.
Anyway, so I don't use throws, I don't own a throw. So I'm just scoring just encouraging it in a certain way. You wouldn't think that makes a difference, but it really does. And then I normally just go straight for it. And it splits in half.
Yeah, that's a good technique. I've not seen that one before.
Yeah, it works even on really huge pieces. And if you're really struggling, you can take an axe, put a wedge in, use the axe at the other end, hit them both. Yeah, throws are really for splitting great big long pieces into fences and things like that. So you can see what we've got. Look, we've got a knot. We don't want the knot really. I often leave knots in just to be awkward and show people that you can.
Right.
But it does make your life easier if it's not there.
Gotcha.
But they don't necessarily split on those sections. But you could draw, and I've got a handy Blue Peter job template.
Okay.
You could call the split surface the top of your cup, or you could do it on the curved surface.
And that gives you a different effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you did it this way, you get nice pretty circles. Some people think that also adds strength to that area. Who knows? It's a crazy world, the Kuksa world. But I don't want to use this piece because I've left the pith in.
Right.
But that's what you can do. But you're going to get more cup for your money if you carve on the split surface.
Right.
And to be honest, I've often got away with them not splitting when I've done that.
Right.
So we're going to go with that with the other piece that's just dropped on your toes.
That's it. All my German army boots.
Right, okay. So let's have a think. So it's split quite cleanly actually. So not a lot of tidying up to do. Just want a flat surface really.
Right.
I think I will stick at this end. So yeah, it's just. So trick with any axe work really. Flick your wrist.
Right.
Don't do this. And for safety reasons, don't really come past 2/3 of the way up.
Gotcha.
Don't do any of this. Get your hand out of the way. Use that big fleshy bit of your thumb to hold on to it. It's less of the end of the world if you catch that than a finger.
Gotcha.
And I'm just, a lot of this is waste really. there's two ways you can use an axe. You can do what I just did then. You can start at the top of your cut, start a curl and try and stay in it. It has to be quite a thin curl. And that's, I call it planing, you could call it whatever you like really. But that's one way of sort of finishing off a piece, which is what I want to do here, so I don't really want to take too much off, otherwise we'll be making an ashtray, not a kuksa. But the other thing to do, I can show you on the side, is you do a series of deep cuts, and then you alter the angle. So we were like this, you do this, you just brush them off with hardly any effort.
Gotcha.
It's a quick way of getting rid of wood, and each one of those acts like a stop cut.
Right.
And you can dictate a nice straightish line. Obviously it's not that straight, but we can soon take a bit more off. Same goes for spoons or whatever you're making really. But this is the heartwood we were talking about.
Right.
And this is quite a lot harder than this sapwood here. And less porous as well, I'm finding out. But yeah, it's just more of the same really, just having a look at the wood, seeing what you've got, and just cleaning up. So if you give me a bit longer, we'll be drawing the picture on.
So Paul, you've done quite a bit of the axe work then. So
Yep.
where are we at now with the blank?
So all I've done is I cleaned off that split surface a little bit. I've not gone crazy, but just enough to sort of get a flat profile. I've tried to keep it fairly parallel to the base, just still got a bit of work to do on. And then I've started to bring in the sides.
Right.
To get that, start that curve. I'm not going to go crazy, but you know, just enough to sort of start to get an idea of where I need to take more off. So next I'm going to add the really obvious bit and sort of draw a picture of the shape I want to try and achieve. It's not set in stone, but you know,
It gives you a rough, basically.
yeah, they always change a little bit, but that's what makes them so interesting. Yeah. So there we go. It just gives me something to aim for.
If people watching this don't have the template, what can they use to kind of...
Just use a cup.
Right.
That's all I do with this.
Okay.
Just use a big cup. Oversize everything.
Okay.
Because even on a thin walled kuksa, it's still not like a ceramic mug.
Right.
And you want it to sit flat. And you do with conventional tables anyway.
Right.
The guys in living in Lavus would have shot me down in flames for saying that. But,
Right.
but yeah, the thickness of the wood and the fact that they aren't as deep as a ceramic mug.
Right.
They tend to be wider than deeper a lot of the time. And I'd normally work with material this thick, but I want to show you, you know, how I would do it if I was starting out basically.
Gotcha.
So yeah, to get the volume, you know, you need to go a bit wider, and they just look a bit oversized, but you know.
Essentially they can be trimmed down basically.
Definitely, yeah. So I don't really need it yet, but I'm just going to mirror the outside to make an inner edge to ideally aim for, and that's my safety. You know, if I go past that, I'm going to have to redesign the kuksa basically, and that's where the gouges really come in handy. You can just put your gouge right on the edge, and then it'll only remove material from that point.
Gotcha.
Eventually, you know, we'll do something like this with a handle. It kind of looks nice, and that's what I normally do. And that's about it. What you can do is, if you want the curve not just to be on the sides, because I've got this extra material here, I can really curve up the sides.
Right.
You could do the same at the end. You could make all of this go back a bit.
To give you that curvature.
Yeah,
on the side.
you know, so that it's not coming straight up. You'd actually come in like a ball.
Right, understand.
And people like that. It makes them look more kuksery.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you just want a functional cook, that'll be fine.
That's officially a new word now.
Kuksery? Yeah.
Kuksery.
Yeah.
That's it.
And cookserage when you get more than one.
That's it. Kuksa was, yeah.
That's it. So just got to go a bit mad with the axe now. But to get in there, it's much easier if we do some saw cuts.
Excellent.
And the same when we go underneath. You know, the handle's going to be something like this. He says, trying to look at both things at the same time. Get the idea?
Gotcha, I understand. So basically layer by layer you're starting to shape it now?
Yeah,
layer by layer.
Starting to get two distinct platforms. If I know what this is doing, I know what that's doing without looking at it,
Gotcha.
because they're running parallel. Yeah, just basically hit it now.
Excellent.
So bear with me, might take some time, but hopefully you'll start to get the idea of a few of those stop cuts. And you can always, don't feel like you can't do this. Lever them out, give them that little bit of oomph to get them sorted. I'll try and get as much out as I can before I get the saw out, just simply because I don't like sawing wood by hand. Quite happy to do it with a chainsaw all day long. But yeah, save energy, make more things then. This is quite an interesting thing to talk about. I've done, rather than trying to take all that wood off at the same time, this whole width here, I work with doing half of it, say. Okay. And then I change and do the other half. Half the wood, half the effort. Right. And then I've got a centre seam, because eventually I want it to be a flat surface again. Right. Then I just do the centre. Gotcha. And then that makes it super easy in a kind of 3-stage way. You see it coming off? Understand. Always make life easy for yourself. And know when to stop as well, you know. Just say, alright, that's enough. Next stage. So I think I'll be happy with that side, and I've just got to repeat it on the other side now. Bring it round a bit at the sides here. There's always more to take off, but you want to try and retain, you know, about that much at least of flatness to the end, so we can get it in our holding device and use the gouges. I like to do as much as I can on the outside first, because when I hollow this out, it's going to be quite a weak structure. Okay. And if I start bashing the hell out of it on the outside with an axe, there's a good chance that I'll break it. Right. Even before I've started drying it or adding hot water or anything like that. Right. So the last stage, I mean, you've seen me axe this bit out. I've started to bring a bit here. Initially you saw me bringing it round. So the next thing to do, and I've just started, is to just start to round it that way. Then we're getting a 3D object. Gotcha. And this is the hardest part of the process, because you're working across the end grain. So all the wood, all the water was coming up the tree like this. So carving anything around here is lovely and soft and easy to do. Wants to carve. Carving across here, that's what saws are invented for. Right. Going that way across wood. Axes were designed to go that way. So you're at a sort of 45-degree angle, and at the end you're going right across the end of all these tightly packed pores, and it's hard work. Right, gotcha. There's not really an easy way around it, apart from using the push knife, which we'll explain in a bit. But the axe work, basically this is as difficult as it's going to get, so just need to make sure I don't make it too shallow an angle, and don't get too steep too soon. You can do that if you wanted to come back around and make it really curvy. Let's take that off. Tip is to move the kuksa down, keep your axe going in one constant motion. Try and get away from carving too much at one go, so work on these corners every time one develops. And another top tip, don't keep going right to the edge, leave a bit on. Right. because all that will want to break off. Trick is to come the other way, and that's really hard to do with an axe, so you tend to do that with a knife.
Gotcha.
I don't think you've got to do the whole thing with the axe. But obviously it's very tempting to, so I'll show you. I do sometimes go to the edge, but see how little effort I'm putting into it. I don't want that to break off.
Right.
So it's slight, light motion. And when you've made a few, you start to remember all the mistakes you've made. It's a good guide. So I don't want to get too mad because I want something to hold on to into the device that we're using. So I'm going to deliberately leave a bit on. As long as I'm starting to get some symmetry. So automatically there, that's shouting, remove me. Make it the same as the other side, you know. Won't be dead on. If you get some idea now, when you start doing the hollowing, you've got a guide.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, this is just big heavy work.
So you've done most of the axe work then?
Yeah, this is pretty much it. We've removed a lot of material and we've started to get some symmetry.
So let's have a look around the shape of it. Gotcha. So you get the bottom flat, haven't you? That's a very important thing.
Yeah, you've got to give it something to rest on when it's a finished product, but also while you're making it. It's not perfect, but I've started to get the curve there,
right,
and the curve roughly the same on both sides. Enough for me to go by for now.
Gotcha.
Started to get a bit out the handle, but obviously eventually it'll be right up here.
Right.
But what I want to do is retain some flat surface area.
Okay.
For what you're about to see soon, but we thought we'd talk about hollowing it out.
Gotcha.
With basic tools. So if you haven't got gouges and things, it's just a case of very slowly, and over a very long period of time, using a spoon knife.
Right.
Now, the Mora spoon knives are kind of okay, but if you can spend a bit extra money and get one that's got a slightly different shape, and there are a few folks that make them.
Right.
Yeah, go for it.
Excellent.
Spend a bit extra, because if you're limiting yourself to one tool, make sure it's the best one you can get.
Gotcha.
And we're only talking about a £10 or £15 difference in price as well. And I'm using the hook part quite a bit. They are effective tools if they're very sharp and well made. And in fact, with a softer wood like willow, it shouldn't take too long. But the minute you start getting steep sides, it starts to get a bit awkward. The ease goes. And you have to pull all the tricks out of the bag to pull it off.
And bear in mind, people watching, that he's doing this in a safe manner. It's braced, the action, everything.
Everything's coming out into fresh air.
Yeah. I
use my thumb for the extra force, but I give it a bit of a pull as well.
Right.
I know it's going to leave the wood, so I make sure I've got plenty of fresh air between it and me. But now I'm starting to struggle, you know, I'm hitting an edge again. I'm starting to not enjoy the process, to be quite honest. But this is absolutely fine if you want to make a shallow kuksa.
Right.
I'd have it done in an hour.
Right.
But it'd be half the depth that this will be.
Gotcha.
And it'll be to a fine finish as well. I wouldn't use any sandpaper or anything like that.
Gotcha.
But no, don't worry about that though. You can use sandpaper, you know. I don't want to put people off.
Yeah. So in essence, this is using this technique of using a basic spoon knife. You kind of just carry through with this kind of approach.
Yeah, it's just time. And to be quite honest, on a day like today, I wouldn't have a problem sitting there doing this if time wasn't against me.
Right.
Like most people, time's always against me. I've never got any of it.
Gotcha.
So I thought I'd show you the fast way.
Gotcha. Mr. Adamson, we've got a faster approach now.
Yeah, so it is a bit of an effort making these sort of things. This is into green woodworking territory full on. You know, you're really starting to do the whole process. You're not just grabbing a piece of wood and doing what you can with what you've got.
Right.
So it's not everybody's cup of tea, but you know, when I got into making kuksas, I got slightly addicted to the whole thing. So I did want to up my game, and it was having a method of holding the wood, so I could use different tools.
Right.
I heard about gouges, but I couldn't think of how to stop it from wobbling about. and inevitably I started to use a gouge, you know, like a spoon knife, and it was taking me longer actually. So I saw Robin Wood basically on his blog put up the plans for making one of these, and there's been a couple of old videos as well from way back when, before they even had sound, I think, on these things, of guys using these. So they've been around a while, I think.
Right.
And they've got all sorts of names: bowl mate, bowl horse, holding device, whatever you want to call it. But basically a means of trapping the wood.
Right.
And this changed everything for me. I started to be able to make them to order and demonstrate to the public at shows and things, and it's a lovely thing. But you started to move away from the bushcraft ethos of it all.
Gotcha.
And you know, I readily admit that. You know.
Right. So with this one now then, so this is clamped in, so you've got the two pieces here.
Well, it's just to show you it's not there yet. You can see how those flat things help to your advantage. The more flat, the more solid it'll be. But you know, I like to get as much off the outside as I can, like I said before, because I don't want this to split when I'm doing the carving stage. If it does when I dry, or when I use hot water, then that's fair enough. You know, that's part and parcel of the whole thing.
So to finish off the kind of
so you need to get it in place. So I use just simple wooden wedges that I've made.
Right.
You know, you'll notice that some of these bits of timber are offcuts from, you know, building work and things, whereas that's just from a tree. That's a piece of ash.
Right.
Just use what you've got really. It's all doing the same job. So I'll just offer them up, and then I give them a bit of a tap. Start off quite gently. Make sure that everything's nice and flat and sitting where it should. And then start to ramp up the pressure a bit. And after the first few goes, they might come loose, but after that they seem to calm down. So that's pretty well in there at the minute.
So that's firmly wedged in now, yeah?
It's not far off.
So all wedged in now, Paul, and the next step is with the gouge, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you just go wading straight in with a gouge, we've got the straight one at the minute, you can actually just go straight to the curved. I often do. Right. But I quite like to spread out the load over two edges so that I don't go blunt.
Right.
If this was a perfectly flat surface, there's a tendency for them to split if you're not careful. So you need to make what we've already made here. Right. Some sort of relief. I'll try and demonstrate it. But what I do is I always start dead centre. Imagine a centre line going through. Just a couple of taps. If this didn't have this relief, that wouldn't have come off. Right. So you take it out at this stage. Seems a bit silly, but it does save the day. And then I do the same at this end. And then I would, the bit that's not actually there, we'd knock that out now. Right. And you've started to create some a definite way of getting in there without splitting it. Gotcha. They often want to split if you don't. If you were to go straight in here, it would definitely split all the way along there. Right. Mainly because we've started to shape the outside. It swings and roundabouts. You know, we've got advantage of already doing the outside in that we know we've got a shape to work to. And when we use the axe again on the outside, if we do, we'll have less problems. Right. But as a result, you've got to use these carefully. Gotcha. Otherwise, you can just go straight. If you had a big piece of wood, just go mental. Right. But I still wouldn't do that now. What I'd do is I'd start to come round a bit. So I started there, and I'd just come round. It's like a clock face, you know, it's going round an hour. Because it's tempting with these extremely sharp gouges on a easily worked wood like willows to go for it. Right. But initially, you know, the first few goes. See what I'm doing? I've come round again. Understand. Is to see it splitting. Take it out and start there. See it splitting, but you want it now. You want it to do that. It'll connect with that in a minute. Give it a bit more of a. You can get them out then. So you've just got a few very light taps, and you've removed a lot of wood. Right. And you've created a definite way in there. Do you see it split? Yep. I don't want it to go all the way. So you're basically controlling the split, making sure it stays within. Yeah. And you only have to do this for the first, you know, about the first centimetre depth. Right. After that, you can just go for it, within reason. So So where shall I go now? But you know, you could actually use that spoon knife or the TWCA we talked about to make that first shape, and it does speed things up a bit. You just got to read what the wood does. The grain's running this way. It always wants to split that way. If you respect the grain, then it'll behave itself basically. So it's two opposing cuts, meet in the middle, and then it's happy days. So starting to get to the end of the usefulness of the straight gouge, and I'll show you how. So it's making contact there, so I can't get it to turn the angle and form the bottom of the bowl or just remove more wood basically. It's just not doing any more. So I'll just refine. It's great for doing the sides though, because they have quite a vertical start to them before they go down. So I'll just start to neaten things up, finish off what I can do with this one, and then I'll flip tools. But if you started out with a curved one, you wouldn't need to do all this, but your hand wouldn't be here, it'd be over here, and it feels a bit awkward.
Right.
That's why I did it with two tools. You see, you've got quite a lot out. You can actually go a less conventional way. If I just come in here, you can make like a trench in the bottom, which you just make wider and wider. The problem with these tools is they're so efficient, you sometimes go a bit crazy and end up busting through the bottom if you're not careful. So
it turns into a sieve rather than a
it's almost addictive, you know. You can't keep going and going and going, and then you go, oh. You know, if on a good day, I'll have one hollowed out in half an hour, finished and done. There we go. Just got it out, look. Big bit. So I'm going to go on the curved one now. So just flipped over to the curved gouge, and this should do most of the process now. And I'm just pushing, look. Start exactly where you want it. You
so
see?
Because of the curvature, naturally...
Yeah, it'll go to the centre in a curve. And this will have its limits too. You know, we'll get so far and then it won't do the bottom. And that's why we switch to the TWCA. I do like dog leg gouges though. They are amazing, and you can do more with one of those than a TWCA, because you can get really narrow, deep kuksas with groovy shapes. But the tricky cams, they're a bit easier to make, a bit easier to come by, and work great with a wide bowl, particularly a circular one like this. And they're just designed for it really. But I always start by pushing. You can remove a lot. I mean, they're not the best chips in the world, but you get the idea. That kind of thickness.
Gotcha. And
it just adds a bit of uniformity to it. It tidies up this top edge, and then if you realise there's quite a lot to remove, you can still use a mallet on these. They say not to on these plain wooden handles, but I've had no bother at all. I've had no problems at all with the metal or the wood hitting them with mallets. Save a lot of money as well. So there's nothing fancy about this. I'm just getting the material out. And again, now and again, I'll start near the edge a bit more carefully and just drop in, and then that'll bring it all round nice. So we can tidy things like that up with the straight knife and the spoon knife.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, so I've been carrying on really, so it's just more of the same. I'm getting towards the bottom now, so I'm being careful that I don't cut here too much.
Right.
And I'm just thinking about thickness, because I've got a gauge, I've got the outside, even though that's not finished, it's roughly where I want it.
Right.
So I'm thinking if it's a bit less than a centimetre, by the time I've smoothed off the outside and the inside, it'll be where I want it to be. So that's all I'm thinking now. I want it to go slightly in, you know, the same shape as this really.
Yeah. In
both sides, ends should I say. I'm not far off. So the main thing I'm thinking about is it all consistent, and is the surface finish nice? I'm getting to that point. See what I mean? I don't want it to cut there, which is a nice safety thing because it won't let me.
Right.
Unless I start wiggling it and doing strange things, which is what I used to do when I only did everything with a curved gouge. You can get away with it. You can finish it off with a spoon knife. It's a bit awkward to reach in there unless you've got a long handle there. So I think that's about the limit there. But you know, now that I've got a new fancy toy to play with, I can get the Twicker cam out.
So you've got your beautiful hook tool here.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a long handle in order for you to get that kind of leverage, basically.
Yeah, leverage is the best way to describe it. Leverage doesn't just work in the obvious way.
Right.
It can work in the rotation.
Gotcha.
For some strange reason, the longer this dimension, the more force you get. Turning force.
Does it double up as one of those hooks on, you know, pantomimes, where you drag someone off stage?
Well, let's try it.
See it, drag me off for talking too much.
Yeah, there we go. Look.
That's it.
I can get away with that.
See it, captain hook.
Yeah, it just gets in the bottom there, nice. Can you see?
So essentially, the action is you're turning.
Yeah, I'm just
the
doing
end,
this.
and sort of this hand here is essentially just bracing it.
Yeah, it's just acting
correct?
as a pivot almost,
Right.
but you know, just in that way.
Right.
But I can act this way. I can move it if I want and actually encourage it. Depends what I want to do. It's doing all sorts of things at the same time. It's quite a clever tool, and it's quite a funny way of working. But yeah, you know, sometimes you're rotating, sometimes you're dragging. The dragging bit works well across that very last bit at the bottom. What else can we do? The end grain. So this is the tricky bit. So it won't look pretty. It won't sound that nice, but it does the job.
And this is going across the very bottom, isn't it?
You do when it's there.
Right.
But you can use the sides as well. You can do all sorts with it.
Right.
I can flip it round, so I can work, I don't know, left-handed I suppose you call it. I haven't even got to come round the side of the block, you see.
I understand.
And then I can...
So this is getting under the lip, isn't it now? Essentially, kind of.
I'm working there.
Right.
That transition from the vertical to the flat.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes there's extra material there that you haven't got out with the gouge, and it's easy days with this thing. Got a bit of a knot going on there, you see. Sometimes they can look nice, sometimes they can cause problems, but just live with it. That's the problem with willow. It isn't as problem free as birch. It'll look completely clean, and you get inside and there's all sorts going off. But I quite like that. It goes hand in hand with Kuksa territory really, in that there's always things to try and overcome. But most of the time it works out fine. And you get an old lake with a fishing club on it, and they'll be knocking these things down left, right and centre. I'm quite happy for you to take the wood away because it's rubbish as firewood. Saying that, actually, I've got a real fire at home, and I was struggling to get wood one year. The same place I got this wood from, they were coppicing all the willows and getting them back down to stumps again, so that they grow nice. And so what are you doing with the wood? I said, oh, I'm just going to throw it away. I said, no way, drop it around my house. I had 7 tons delivered. Oof. And I had to convert it all by hand. And they said, oh, this is no good for firewood. I said, yeah, but I only want hot water. And it's the best thing for hot water because it goes up like a rocket. Before you know it, you've got a tank full of hot water and you're all having lots of baths.
We're sitting there with your little back of Laplander cutting everything. And,
yeah, it's just lucky that day. Anyway, I think we're about done. All this kind of jazz you can do with the straight knife and the spoon knife, and I'll show you that next.
So now it's what, the knife work?
Yeah, we're just going to try and balance the thing up. It still looks like it's been chewed by an animal or something, so we've got a lot of work to do. All you've seen so far is quick and almost in the time that you've seen it, to be honest. We've only been doing this for an hour or so, haven't we? So yeah, the rest is quite fine work. It's sitting down, it's taking your time, and it's the part of the job that most people think it's probably all of the job, but it's you can see that it's a 2-stage process. So we're going to get the surface finish nice and get some uniformity and thinness to the whole thing.
Excellent. So Paul, sitting on your stump, looking all relaxed.
Yeah, just normal every day.
That's it.
We've took it out of the block and just going to start attacking it with a knife now. These side bits are really easy to do. If you just come up to the top like this, use your thumb. Once you get past those axe lines, it starts to get a bit smoother. Try not to take too much off. Keep it nice and thin and easy with the shavings. It's almost too easy to do, so do hold back a little bit. You start to get a much better finish. If you can get it down to a nice thickness on the actual kuksa eventually, and you're happy with the way it looks with a knife, you can just leave it like that, and I always do that now. But the better you can get this surface finish with your tool marks, and if you did want to sand it, then it's going to be much easier because you won't be reshaping the cup. You'll just be removing the smallest of marks and then going through the grips. The only tricky bit is to get this from a flat to a round. It's quite heavy work, so there's a few other grips we can use. Probably attack this first. So I'm going to brace it against my body and just pull towards myself. I'm using my wrist as a stop and making sure it points away from me for obvious reasons, and that the edge is facing up most of the time. We could use the push knife that we talked about, and it's a bit like the gouge and the spoon knife syndrome. You can use it to speed things up, but this isn't so bad. It's difficult whichever way you do it, to be honest. But again, so I'm using my body to brace it, so I've got advantage straight away. There's no lost energy. As with all knife work, I'm always trying to incorporate a slice. I want to start near the handle and near the tip. If you just try and push through in one place, it gets a bit tricky. nearly around to centre. Centre's there. So there's a bit more to go. And you can start to flip round. Start to come up. But again, you have to be careful. If you keep coming all the way up, sometimes you'll take a chunk out.
Right.
It's very green wood still, you know. It was only felled the other day. There, we're across. You just got to blend it in now and check for thickness. Now there, if I use the inside and the outside as a guide, that's as thick as I want it anyway.
Right.
Just so happens that that's raised and higher. By the time I've blended that into there, happy days, and we're where we want to be.
So the idea is slow, take your time.
Yeah, make steady progress. Make sure that you don't make a mistake at this point. Then just keep working away at it. As long as you feel like you're making progress, keep going. If it feels really difficult and hard to do because the piece of wood you've got or your knife isn't very sharp, do something about it. You know, you might want to, if it's really hard wood, I'd be encouraged to get one of those push knives.
Right.
And then just get it on a block. I just use my foot and then just push.
Gotcha.
You've got so much more, you've got two hands on the job.
Right.
You've braced the work and it's just designed for it.
Gotcha.
But, you know, if you just want to sit down, you know, take your time, you can do it as long as you've got the right wood. So it wants to be cut, it's loving it, look. That last bit, I always come this way, so I've been coming up, I just come across. Just makes a nice tidy job of it. Again, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of all the times I've made a mistake, so just trying to avoid it from happening. This, it will be a bit awkward there, it doesn't really want to do it, so you're going to have to come the other way and work blind, or this cut. This is a chest lever,
right,
or scissor grip. When you've got a spoon there, it looks like a pair of scissors, you know, because you're moving both at the same time. Try and keep everything on your chest. Make sure you got your fingers out of the way. It's a really, really powerful grip, and you can do big bits, or you can walk nice and slow. Take small bits.
right.
And it's not far from your eyes, in a safe way, so you can see what you're doing better. So it's great if you struggle with your vision, or it's night time and you sat around a fire or something and you head torch on. You can still do a lot of work safely, and you're not waving your knife around. It's not like the old-fashioned forehand grip where you need a lot of safety.
Yep.
You've got big blood zone, you know, you've got to do that without hurting somebody. But no one sits that far away from each other when they're all chatting away around a fire, so you know, confined spaces. That grip's brilliant, the chest lever. There's another one. This time I'm cutting towards myself again, a little bit like there, weren't we? But this time I'm going to have assistance. I only need to brace the kuksa with two fingers, my finger and my forefinger and my thumb. Three fingers doing nothing really. I could hold on, but I don't need to. Put them on the back of your hand and use them to push the knife in. You'll only go so far because it wants to go downhill, but not uphill.
Right.
It's like a valley, you know, so you have to come back the other way. And that way I like to, and don't ever cut in here for obvious reasons.
You're going to mess up your foul ravens.
Yeah, you certainly are.
That's it.
That's one way of calling it, isn't it?
That's it, isn't it, your foul ravens.
But there's also major artery,
Yeah,
femoral artery. It's pretty much game over if you cut that. It's tourniquet time and off to hospital, and even then you might lose your leg. Normally stops people from doing that. Work to your side, whichever side you favour. Again, I'm still using assistance, so it's a bit like the forehand grip, holding it in my fist. Just get a thumb on the back of it, or two. And get the two cuts to meet, and off it goes. Nice and safe, feel like making progress. So that one, do it as far as you can, and then meet it. You can move a lot quickly. Now, if I'm lucky with the chest lever, I'll be able to do the whole thing. It's getting stuck there, look, you see, that's my limit. But I can get all this a bit easier now. And then just start nipping that off. And it's just more of the same basically. So we've been playing around with the outside and there's still a lot to do, but I naturally started to think, I start tidying up the inside.
Right.
And there's a lot you can do with a straight knife for doing that. And I've been doing it, where have I been doing it? Been like this. So I call this a potato peeler.
Mm-hmm.
You can call it what you like, but you know, to me it's like peeling potatoes. And you can use it in here, look. Take loads off really easily. Obviously you can't go too far down because the shape of the bowl won't allow it, but it's a very quick way of making it look nice and to thin it down. You'll have a limit there as well because you're going to start going uphill again.
Gotcha.
So you just stop and leave it. For this quarter, if you think of 4 quarters, from there to there, it works with this.
Mm-hmm.
From there to there, it would work pushing. Yep.
Right.
It just wants to come off that way. And then you've got a little bit where the two need a little bit of encouragement to sort of join up. And you'll be pushing and pulling and going one way or the other, and then eventually it'll look good. We'll be chasing things all day, but we can do that later. So this quarter again, pushing. Go so far, and then people are surprised that you can use a straight knife to do so much work. But we can have a play with a spoon knife now as well. This has got a fairly flat section which you could also do all of that action with there, but obviously you can't push with it unless you had a left-handed one or a scorp.
Right.
So there's things you can do now. You can go a bit deeper because you've got that shape.
Right.
It'll only work on one about this deep because you're going to kind of run out of blade basically.
Gotcha.
And you can start to thin it down. I always think of spoon knives as finishing tools. And it's a bit much to ask of one of these to do the whole entire thing, and your wrists really feel it. I've only ever made one kuksa with a spoon knife all the way through, and it really put me off, to be honest. And mind you, it's probably because I was using birch burr, which is pretty tough stuff, and it was really highly figured, so it was full of knots. So it's much the same as the straight knife, it's just I can go into that base now, or where the two join anyway, the very base and the vertical, this curve here. It's great for getting in there. But you're limited unless you've got a left-handed one in pushing as well, so you kind of just have to do what you can do really. But it should be pretty much there anyway from the gouge work, we're only just tidying up. And there's another tool we haven't talked about, and it's probably more important if you decided not to sand it, but you wanted a finer finish than tools that are highly sharpened can do. I very rarely do it, but you can use a little scraping tool. It's like a little tiny blade that you hold in your hand, and it just takes off all those high spots. But yeah, that can help you out if it's what you call like a furry wood, when you just can't seem to get that finish, or the way the grain is or something. But, you know, I think we're about there really. Well, we're not far off, to be honest. I've just been doing more of the same that you've seen me do already. Just checking thickness, looking down the end to see if it's the same shape on both sides. They're never perfect, but you know.
So there's a lot of finer finishing cuts basically. With
yeah, it's just easy work, nice work, whittling I suppose you call it at this stage. I've still got some meat to get off there.
Right.
But yeah, just trying to get some symmetry to it and get to that point where I go, right, okay, that's done. But you can see how smooth that is.
Yeah.
You really don't need sandpaper on things like that. And all it is getting knife sharp. And this could be a lot sharper than it is, but you know, when you start getting a knife down to 16,000 grip, you know, it's going to be blooming sharp, and a damn sight finer than sandpaper. And yeah, I think it leaves a nice finish. I quite like a textured finish anyway. And it's not done deliberately, it's just what comes from making the item. So yeah, I'm just taking a bit off every now and then. Look at the colour of that, it's fantastic. There's quite a lot of work to do under here yet, but I always leave that to last.
Right.
I just want to get all the difficult shape done before I do the handle, because the handle's really easy. Top wants doing. This is the first time I've done it, but yeah, you just take a small amount off just to clean it up, and then you can see if it's thick or thin. See, that's thicker there than there, so you can really start to hone in on the finished product. Take off them high spots, probably do a bit on the inside. Yeah, you don't want to take too much off because you'll undo all that hard work of hollowing it out, obviously, and make a shallower cut. We don't like shallow cuts. I don't anyway. Right, so I had a big lumpy bit of handle here, and I want it to curve down, and obviously the other side to sort of mirror it to a certain point. So I've just put a saw cut in there,
Okay.
and then pop that bit out with the axe.
Right.
Just one hit and it comes out virtually. But I've been a bit cautious and I've not cut this where I want it to be.
Okay.
So I've got some material to remove.
Right.
It takes ages with a straight knife. If you are going to resort to push knives, this is probably the most important time to use it. Just flies
So it's
through that
basically the part where it meets the handle.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to blend it in, get rid of some of this. It's so much easier. The only thing is, it's not best of things for your back. But it's a personal thing that I do. If you choose to do it, it's your own choice. But I think a few minutes like this, it's not going to really send you off to is it an osteopath? That's your back.
That's it.
As long as you haven't got many injuries. But I've done far worse to my back than this, so I think that'll be okay. So what I'm doing, I've got nice and thin there, really chunky there, so I've got more to take off.
Right.
And then I'll do a bit more of this, and then I'll show you how to do this bit on the bowl horse.
Excellent.
Quite tricky to do the end grain. Just trying to get this groovy shape. So little bits like that I'm not worried about, because I'm going to put a bevel on there. I might drop it down a bit more yet, but I'm just going to get the bulk off.
Right.
I like it to go in a bit there, like swing. Always curves everywhere, You have to be careful here because it always wants to break off. So I've gone down that way, turned my blade and gone in.
Right.
If you keep going, that will just come off. All that hard work of trying to get that shape gone. Like with everything though, there's no real hard and fast rules. You can get away with all sorts. But I'm getting to the point now. Well, I'm pretty chuffed with this. So it's a case of setting this point now. Where do I want this drop? The best thing to do is hold it.
When you say drop, as in like the drop of the end?
Drop. Loads more comfortable to hold on to if they drop. If they come up, they look amazing, but you have to put a little hook underneath to stop your hand from slipping up and you drink away.
Gotcha.
I learned that the hard way. So I think upswept handles look amazing, and most of the true kuksas, the ones made by the Lapland, the Sami, up in Lapland and you know, the north of Sweden and Finland and Russia and what have you, they call them kuksas, and they're nearly always upswept.
Right.
And they just look absolutely amazing. And it was the touristy ones, the holes in that you buy at the airports. They were the ones that had them fairly straight.
Right.
And it was the holes that did all the work of stopping it from slipping out your hand.
Right.
So if you're going to go for a holeless handle, which I think is a more traditional kuksa, you've got to get it so it stops slipping out your hand. You can either do that easily like this, or you're going to have to put an upswept handle in and then a curve. And I say you have to, you kind of do have to, you know, otherwise it won't work. Unless you hold it like this, which is kind of like a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But, you can talk about stuff like that all day, but also makes them look a certain way. But you've got to get the drop right, you know. You've got to start. It's all subtle stuff, and maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but you kind of do after a while.
So now that you've done quite a bit of refinement, what are we doing now?
Just making it comfortable to hold on to. So if I hold on to it like that, you've got this sharp edge digging in. So we're going to put a sort of bevel on that surface. So it's you could call it chamfer.
Right.
But you're not rounding off the edge. You're just adding a different dimension. You could say if there were two surfaces were at 90 degrees, you'd say it was 45 degrees.
Gotcha.
But it's not. So I've just ran around the inside really quick and done one on the bowl. I'll do one on the outside in a second, and that's for the same reason. You want it to be comfortable on your lips.
Right.
You don't want to be biting down on a sharp edge.
Gotcha.
When you're slurping your tea. You don't want to overdo it on the outside, otherwise you'll dribble everywhere.
Right.
But it's really important on the handle. So, just blast it off.
These little touches make such a difference, don't they?
Massive difference, yeah. And it's obviously mainly about function, but it does help to make them look a bit nice as well. That's all there is to it really on that side. And I'll just repeat the process. Doesn't take a lot of effort or skill really, it's just knowing when to stop and start, and using the push cut. That's about it for that. Always do one on the end as well in case you hold on to it there. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to lose the end of the wood. Whenever you can really with carving, come from two different directions to meet, and you'll have less problems. Can get a little bit funny in your hand there, so just on a smaller scale, just nibble away at that.
So in essence, as you're carving, especially at this stage, it's good to hold it, get a feel for it, see where things are biting in.
It's the small things now that would irritate you later when it's all dry and done, and then you go to sit down and use it and you think, oh, I wish I'd taken that bit off. And you do it all now really. I tried to do the whole thing in one go, all the carving and all the finishing and everything, and then I'll let it dry, and if something's really obvious that wants removing, I'll nip it off, and it's easily done once it's dry. These bits are the hardest. You've got the grain going down in there,
right,
where they meet. It doesn't want to meet nicely, so just keep tickling at it either way. And if it becomes a bit of a chore and you think you're chasing something for the sake of it, stop. Just stop. And then come back to it when it's dry. Get your knife really, really sharp. And then yeah, you'll be good to go. So that's that all done. It feels kind of loads better, basically. You could really go for it and, you know, make these surfaces meet there.
Right.
And it's even more comfortable. In fact, I might do that, but, you know,
Yeah.
I can always do that another time. So I'll just nip around the outside quick, just a tiny bit. Don't want to go mad. It doesn't like going across the grain here very much. But the worst thing you can do is take too much off, obviously. Certainly doesn't like it there, so that's when you start coming the other way.
So Paul, that is it. You've pretty much done as much as you can, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it now. I'll just let it dry, and like I say, come back to it.
So with the drying, I know this is something that a lot of people can struggle on. What are some tips and advice you can give?
Okay, well you've seen, well hopefully you've got the idea that we've carved it quite quickly.
Right.
And that's one of the big things to do. The weather does make a bit of a difference. You don't really want to do it on a hot day
Right.
and keep stopping for brews and things.
Right.
In a matter of 20 minutes with a bit of a breeze on a warm day, you can start getting the telltale crack.
Right.
Always there. So carve it quickly. You know, hopefully it's in a cool, fairly undrafty place. Drying, so slowly, basically.
Okay.
But not too slowly that it goes mouldy. Some people get a bit too go over the top.
Right.
Take months to do it. 2 weeks is the most I would ever spend
Right.
drying something. I normally get really impatient and start showing it a bit of heat.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to, well, we all tend to live in houses. I'm not going to pretend that we're always in the woods. So a cool room.
Right.
You've obviously got rid of the drafts because you're inside. Initially, with willow particularly, I'd do it in a plastic bag.
Right.
If you wanted to. I mean, if you want to be old traditional, just use paper bags and shavings. Turn it inside out every other day for about 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll start to notice that there's less moisture on
Right.
the bag. It just evaporates off basically just through being at a fairly normal temperature.
Right.
And then you could continue to do that with the bag open for a couple
Right.
more days, or a paper bag, and then just leave it out on the side in the same
Right.
room a few more days.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a bit like a Wallace and Gromit animation, you know, bit of this, bit of that, you know, just keeps going on and on. But yeah, by the end of the 2 weeks, it's baking underneath the wood burning stove. And if you're lucky, there'll be no cracks.
What are a couple of things you can do if you start seeing cracks?
You can kind of start to slow it down again,
Right.
and hope that it doesn't dry so much at the weak point
Okay.
and starts to dry elsewhere.
Right.
You can live with it.
Mm-hmm.
You could, if you just wanted it for cold drinks, just pack some beeswax in there, melt some beeswax, pack it in there.
Right.
It's fine, perfectly
Okay.
fine. If it hasn't cracked, then you've overcome the first hurdle,
Okay.
and then the next one is to hope that it's going to withstand some boiling water. And there's all sorts of little tricks for avoiding problems with that.
I think in the future we may possibly do an advanced
Yeah.
video, possibly. But
Yeah,
yeah.
some of it's sort of it's a bit like going out fishing at sea, isn't it? You start touching Lucky Charms and things like that. It's all a little bit that way inclined with kuksas, but sometimes you can just carve them like we've done
Right.
on the split surface, not do anything else to it, dry it carefully, and it'll work.
So lastly, Paul, a few words about oiling once it's dried. Any suggestions and advice about oiling it?
Yeah, you can choose not to.
Right.
And you don't need to really. Remember, this wood's porous,
Right.
and once you've removed the moisture, you've basically, you know, there's millions of little holes there.
Right.
If you can get something to penetrate that and to block them up
Right.
and to solidify, you're going to get a much more waterproof cup.
Right, gotcha.
So, I mean, I used to use food grade linseed oil,
Right,
or flaxseed oil as it's often called in the States,
right,
and it's one of the oils that it cures, and curing is solidifying or polymerizing, I believe they call it,
right,
and it forms a molecular chain that it just changes what it is. It's no longer a liquid, and it stays as a solid. It forms, basically it's like a plastic, but a very natural one. I think they used to use it for making linos, you know, that go on your bathroom floor.
right.
That's how they originally made it. Linoleum was the linseed, and yeah, so that's what I do. And you can just do it on the outside if you want, and just to
What
make
would you
sure.
do? Put it on a cloth and then just wipe it over?
I just get it in my hands and wipe it on.
Right,
I did used to soak them in big pots,
right,
and leave it there for days on end, but I found that a lot of it just came back out again,
right,
especially with hot fluids.
right,
So what I tend to do is just put thin layers on the inside and the outside and leave it to dry,
right.
and then hope that does it, because it's the outside one that dries.
Gotcha.
There's a good video by Don Naisley and Lee Stoffer about linseed oil and how it dries. Check it out. But I don't always put it on the inside, actually, because some people don't like the taste of it. You know, if a little bit does come out, hasn't quite cured, then you're going to get a little bit of a taste in your coffee. But so the outside is more important. It makes it look nice.
Right.
It blocks up some of those pores, and you know, adds a little bit of shelf life to it. If you were to leave it out in a damp environment for a while, it's less likely to get mouldy.
Right.
And just drinking caffeinated drinks like tea and coffee, it's going to block all this up and make it really nice and waterproof anyway.
Gotcha.
So just use it, oil the outside lightly, and you're good to go.
So there you go. That is a wrap for this video, Paul. Thank you so much. You were about to shake my hand with the Kuksa there. So I've become part of it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know this is a bit of a long video, but it's kind of necessary because of all the steps involved. Like I said, what we've done, we've stamped the video below in the description, so you can jump to the different sections in the future when you're watching. And the goal here really is, because of Paul's guidance, is for you to go out there and attempt it. That's the kind of big thing.
Do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of go out there. You know, Paul has done a great job in terms of really breaking it down into its steps. It takes him a lot of time. It's taken you a lot of time, hasn't it, to work out a lot of the steps?
Yeah, I've been doing this for about 8 or 9 years.
Yeah,
Seriously, and playing around before that, just
Yeah.
making the odd one. And you could learn these skills in just a couple of days, though. It doesn't take that much, really.
Yeah.
It's just stick at it. And
Well, I genuinely and sincerely, all jokes to one side, I really appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time.
no, I really
I know a lot of
enjoyed it.
people keep knowledge like this to themselves, but kind of Paul's really great at that, kind of openly kind of sharing what's taken him a very long time to do. So I hope you've got a lot of value from that. Needless to say, I'm going to put a link to Paul's social media and website below if you need to get in contact with him to inquire about what he does, the information he provides. Your blog has got a lot of resources in
Yeah,
it as well.
it's been going for a while, the blog.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all Facebook and Instagram these days,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So what I'll do is I'll put a link to all of his social media and website below. It will mean a lot to me if you please go and check him out. That's the kind of least way I can kind of thank him, and you can kind of thank him by giving him a follow. If you do end up carving a kuksa as a result of this video, feel free to kind of tag the both of us. We'd love to see how you got on with that. And the key thing is just go out there, have a go. So hope you enjoyed the video. Paul, thank you once again.
Thank you.
I'll put links below to go and check out Paul's social media and his website. Please go and do that. Let me know in the description below what you thought of this video, and best of luck in your pursuit in how to carve a kuksa. So, from myself and Paul, I said myself and Paul here, I've got it the other way around. So from Paul and myself, there you go. It's been a long day.
Very long
I hope
day.
whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. From Paul and myself, peace out.